Hey, welcome to Unstoppable Consciousness. This is a great episode. We started off the cuff with my dear friend, Bhaskar. He is an extraordinary human being, and we just decided to start recording right in midway conversation. We were catching up, and it turned into one of the best episodes of Unstoppable Consciousness and talking about the real deal about what's happening in the world and the true experience of change that we need to collectively make. So enjoy the episode.
We're just gonna do us because this is what we do.
This is what we do. We're doing us.
This is how we do. Yeah.
So
It's been great.
down the way, my friend, you were expressing how the decluttering is manifesting for you.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it's about that. For me, it's about that. What I was saying, what we were talking about is like, what do you have to do right now? What are we up to? What's being called, and what's being called for me has been that decluttering myself, my life, my ideas, my business, cleaning up house, realizing that the we is the problem. So if I fix what I'm collectively creating in the we that's negative, because I'm not right with myself, then that's going to automatically make a ripple effect for the rest of the people to realize that if we heal what's going on internally, we're going to heal what's going on in a humanitarian way. And, that's been a big focus for me. It really has. It really, really, really has. And, I think about you too, and I'm excited to have our conversation because obviously I love talking to you anyways, but because I think that's critical in the work that you do too, right? It's like, what are you doing now to serve your inner world, which serves the outer world? Because it's from the inside out that the outside in gets really, it can move more peacefully and gracefully. Because I think that's what's wrong in the world right now is we don't see clearly that some things inside of our humanity right now, they live inside of people. That's where they got birthed. And they live inside of what's broken inside of us as individuals. Because an individual had to discover greed as a formula for what's going on in the world right now. You know what I mean? Someone somewhere had this idea that if I take for myself, and that ripple effect is what we're dealing with right now for me. That's what we're really dealing with. We're dealing with the brokenness in individuals, which is creating a collective for other people to think that it's okay to behave that way too. We forgot our individuation. We forgot our personal dharma. We've forgotten our personal ability to rise. And that's supposed to be the generosity impact. That's supposed to be the compassion impact. Because when you understand what you're experiencing, you're able to share it with the world, right? And the practice of that, what is that going to mean? So that's what I've been working on really, really intensely, honestly.
Beautiful.
And just sitting with that. So.
Yeah, it reminds me of a very cute anecdote because you mentioned right in the beginning that we is the problem. And for me, I'm a huge fan of the headstand, standing upside down. You know this already. And I find, life makes way more sense when you turn it upside down. I just find it's just deeply revealing. And if you take the we and turn it upside down, you get me. Me is the problem.
Exactly. I really
the inside job. It's I find it's dead on point. Because if you try to figure things out externally, all the details, you can get really lost in all kinds of possibilities and theories. Yet if you boil it down, like you just so beautifully did, it comes down to the story of greed that's somehow just taken over all the systems around the world and poisoned our ability to manifest our dharma.
And we get caught, we get caught in that idea, and I my work, and I know your work too in the world, is you work with deeply spiritual, empathic people. And if you hear something 100 times, it becomes something you tune into in your frequency of self. And if you're looking on the outside for what's on the inside, you're going to tune in to that idea of greed and all the population doing the same thing, because that's been happening for us in North America. That is our civilization, is let us collectively let other things take care of you as an individual. When was the last time you planted your own garden? When was the last time you went hunting for yourself? We have this socialization which says this bigger picture is going to take care of you, the individual. So we've forgotten ourselves. We've forgotten how to self-care. We've forgotten how to take care of our dharma, our literal, what am I here to do? It's convenience. It's a convenience to have a convenience store. Okay, that's fine. That could work for a collective, but how is that spreading in a way that's negative because we're forgetting who we are? So this has been for me the real opportunity in all of this is COVID as an example is like teaching everybody, but who are you really in the big scheme of things exactly? You're a human being that can be destroyed by a virus.
Just like that.
Just like that.
Yeah.
So who are you really?
All the posturings and all the collections of all the material things gone. Just like that.
So who are we really?
Yeah.
And what are all the things that you haven't done because you're watching other people and you have to think we have to be this or that, or we have to market this way and scream this loud and share who we are and live in our gifts and find our purpose. And in all that demonstration of noise, where are we really? What have we forgotten about what we're really called to do? And so for me, that's been the deep embedded feeling in my heart is like, this is not a collective change. It's a personal change, which is going to change the collective. You know what I mean? And that's the service that we can do. Like for me, that's the service I can do is help, like as an example, people that are empathic, stop listening to the noise outside and listen to inside and learn to really understand that their soul has its own process. There's no joke we're together in this. There's a reason to. There's a collective awareness for me that we've created this madness because we believe the outside in and not the inside out. You know what I mean? And that's become the problem, I think, a big part of the problem, in
the Yoga Sutras, the very first sutra translates to "and thus begins" the understanding of yoga. And the "and thus" sort of points to a prerequisite of readiness. A prerequisite of some kind of curiosity of these more perennial questions like who am I really and what is my gift, because many of us don't want to look at it. It's painful. There's a lot of things that are unexamined that is very humbling and uncomfortable. So it's much easier to just project judgments and anger, greed, fear, that kind of stuff. But when you have to turn that microscope inside, it's unpleasant, at many levels. It causes, a lot of self-reflection. And I hope, it's my sincere wish that this intense situation we're going through collectively gives us that opportunity to be more curious about life. To really, go to that original state where, we are born with these unique gifts. Everybody, it's amazing how it's been so true throughout my entire life. Before I used to think, hey, I have this gift and somebody else doesn't, so I'm smarter. Not true. This person has way more gifts that I don't have, in many different music or dancing or cooking or speaking or athletics or whatever it might be, or just loving, compassion, care, all the inner jewels, kindness, generosity. So we all have these qualities, and this is really a great opportunity to self-reflect on what they are in a very objective way, double down on them, refine them in a way that is meaningful, and offer to the world, and create a better story. Because as you pointed to, there is a story that's been built around greed, all systems around it, and it seems to me the way out is to just change the story. you know
And the focus, like you're saying, to me, that's amazing point of view, because it really is about if you're looking outside for who we are on the inside, if that's what we're doing, and we're listening to that noise, what happens is inside, we don't hear what's important and what's not important. For some people, they lost their jobs as an example. And if they're focused on what's happening outside, let's say they're focused on the news and they're focused on this and they're focused on that, they can't hear their internal system saying, you need to do this to attain money for your survival. They can't hear their inner wisdom because they're focused on the outside and thinking about what's on the outside and thinking about what the government's going to give them and they're missing the inner guidance, which says, I know what to do.
And
I know what you need to do.
Yeah, it's causing anguish, a lot of anxiety.
Yes.
So how do you help, Lisa? Just I know because I work with you, but I just want whoever's listening, watching to also understand, how do you help people to tap into that inner wisdom that comes from listening?
Yeah. Well, there's a few ways. Like for me, and I know for you as well. Like I know your brilliance as well. And I deeply, for me, it's like, oh, when you go inside, there's a few things. One of them is to understand the empathic power that people have. Most people are empathic. They feel and sense and know energy outside of themselves. That's how the collective has been able to populate our minds and take us prisoners. Just like as a child, the child knows what their parents want from them. And if they get caught in that and they don't have a parent that teaches them that their soul, their essence, their own energy is of the greatest value and the highest regard, more important than whatever they teach them, the child gets conditioned based on the energy that it feels from their family and their environment. And when we grow up like that, and with this as our population has learned, outside in, not inside out, it becomes a plague inside of ourselves. It becomes, our tuning forks, our empathic gift, our energetic frequencies, our chakra system, our auric system starts to tune in the wrong way. It's looking on the outside because of the conditions of the mind. And it's looking for what it should do on the outside and not listening to the inside saying, don't listen to that. Don't listen to this. Listen to this. Creating that energetic field, which will give us the guidance and attract us to our next right steps personally, So teaching about the energetics, teaching about the power of being an empath and working with our energy deliberately and learning how to go in and feel our force field directing our actions, learning how to block the wrong energy from our ears, our eyes, our sounds energetically. This is what I've been doing. This has been the most important thing for me, is to help people understand their energetic power, because through that energetic power, they can block what is really not good for them and stop listening to all the noise outside that's just hammering down on our hearts and our minds and our fears and our emotions, and really tune into inside. And what do we need to do on the inside, whether it's breath, whether it's taking care of ourselves, whether it's yoga class, whether it's doing actions that serve and not in fear through, this is a great time for you to do healing. Oh, it is. Okay, great. But we're in COVID. I should worry about my job. No, you shouldn't worry about your job. You're good. I want you to worry about self-healing, because our inner world, our inner guidance will tell us what to do when our energy is blocking what is not in our highest truth. And our energy system can hear the highest truth from the outside and get directions. But when we don't have our energy safely contained in our own orb, we're going to hear all kinds of things that are not tuned into our highest vision of what we need to do next. So that's what I've been doing. What have you been doing? I want to know.
Wow. So much you've expressed. I'm finding that it's never been more important to maintain a healthy body and a peaceful mind.
Yes. One moment, please.
Yes.
Close this. We have to close this noisy window because this is such a good conversation. Okay.
So here we are. I'm seeing this a lot into the webinars and the private clients and so on that I have the good fortune to be with. There is a lot of what you pointed to, this outside in way of living, looking for verification, validation from the external world. And currently, because life is so uncertain, and we, as a species, we like certainty. Even if it's terrible, we like to know what's going to happen next. And right now, nobody really knows what's going to happen next. Whoa, there's a lot of light coming through the window now. I've become white.
Angelic, as usual.
So exactly to your point, that the fear basically jams up Dharma. It jams up the flow, of the gifts that we are born with. At a subtle level, at a gross level, the worst thing you could do to your body right now is to go through stress and all the hues of stress anger, depression, frustration, anxiety, and so on, because that severely compromises your immune system. And so it's like it's been shown actually that by and large, many people who have been severely affected by this virus, they are going through some kind of anxiety. So it's very important to look after this mind-body system. I really celebrate the Chinese word for crisis. I understand it to be wuji or something like that. It's got two parts to it. The first part is danger, be careful. This is very clear. The external world is going through tremendous change and reshaping. The second part, ji, means good fortune, opportunity. There's actually a good fortune right now. And the good fortune is, this is a great time to double down on your own life experience. This is a great time to look after your body, your mind, to ask these questions. What am I really meant to serve here? In this movie, this tapestry of life, I'm here right now. And what's the best version of this movie? What's the best way to manifest in this life? So, and when we are in a state of fear, it's difficult to navigate that way. So to answer your question, yoga essentially is this cavalry of techniques to release tightness from the body and tightness from the mind.
I love it. Cavalry. I love it.
It's like everything. You want breathing, you want vibrations, you want mantras, you want movement, you want whatever you want. It's like boom. So it's all designed to create a expansive state, from tightness to expansion and lightness. And so there is that. There's the actual practice, the pranayama, the asana, the dharana, dhyana, the meditation, and so on. Then there's the philosophy as well. It's just how you see things. I think Dr. Wayne Dyer said it beautifully. The way you look at things changes what you look at, words to that effect. So it's just offering different perspectives on how to navigate through relationship challenges, health challenges, career challenges. So my methods are practice and dialogue, and just like you, it's empathic. It's not a script. You're totally present, and whatever comes from wherever it is, kind of a thing. So that's really how I wish to serve right now, and also and also educating myself right now as well. It's a great time to double down on my skills, my gifts, my arts, or reading a lot more, listening to podcasts and audiobooks that really empower me. So this is a great time to get empowered. So if that's the opportunity here, and it's never been more important to genuinely feel empowered, so that you become an expression of love and not fear, and part of the solution and not a part of the problem. And another level of that is that we have fear because we have needs, and when our needs are not met, we get afraid. So it's really going that level deeper, right down to the firmware of people, not the software operating system of personality, but down to the hard code that's inside our bodies that create these reactive patterns based on unmet needs, either real or imagined. So, and discovering ways and how we can meet those needs ourselves, which is very possible.
Yeah, I love that. It makes me think of a couple of things. It makes me think of what you said in the beginning, and like we like certainty. And I was thinking to myself, but do we really? Or is that a condition? And I've been thinking a lot about what we were like before the cement.
Yeah, well, it's an illusion, isn't it? It's an illusion.
Yes. And I was thinking a lot about that.
Well, there's something about that, I know if I work here, I'm going to get a paycheck, and with that paycheck, I can pay my rent and get the food. And, there's that sort of mechanical certainty. Yet, we've just realized in the last few months that it's very ephemeral. It's, it's an illusion. So if our anchor for certainty cannot be outside, what if we can have another anchor of certainty, which is more inside, as in knowing what I'm about, knowing what my gifts are, knowing how to best contribute to the story, and that becomes my certainty.
Yes, I love it. And that is the key for me. That is the total key. You know what I mean? The other thing I want to say is, especially about you, because one of the attributes I love, and I've known you a long time, you know, and I've watched you grow in your capacity to listen to people and the conditional problem. And one of my favorite things about you is you're able to pull out of nowhere, out of the ethers, I don't even know where it comes from, stories of wisdom that bring clarity to that problem, whatever the problem is, whether it's a, you know, an internal one, or if it's in a conversation, you know, just like now we're just talking, like, yeah, I have a story for that. And I have actually something to help us reshape, rethink, open our minds and think differently about the conditions we're talking about right now, because every conversation has condition in it. Like, there's a reason we're having the conversation. There's something we're trying to explore, understand, share, give, hear, listen to, be fed by. And it's so critical now. Like, I think your work is so important right now because people need to hear other stories that they've forgotten. They need to hear ancient wisdom. We need to remember things that are sitting in history, just waiting for us to grab and say, oh yeah, that happened. And this is what the lesson was. Let me reintegrate that lesson now because I forgot, or I didn't know, because I was born in this time. And in this time, the conditions, although not different for my humanity, they're different in how I'm living, the environment, the internet, the speed. You know, people say often to me too, like, you know, I tell people, my clients especially, I'm like, don't block, you have to get off the internet. It's like a portal of energy that's going to just destroy you if you don't take space from it. Mm. It will destroy your mind, your reflections, your internal guidance. Make sure you have that time to go in, to do the practice, to breathe, to think, to read stories, to listen to something else, to have other ideas of how we have to reshape, rethink, especially from our own inner guidance perspective, you know? Yeah. And to hear that guidance. I had a conversation the other day with one of my classes, one of my students, and, you know, this was the conversation. What's the difference between intuition and inner guidance? You know? And I took time to explain. Intuition is something that drops in. It drops in from somewhere, from a higher perspective. It drops into us. Psst, hey, this is what's going to happen. This is what it looks like. Turn left, go here, go there. Inner guidance is, I know everything about you. I know all that you are. And I know what you're here to do. And I know how you need to do it. And I see the current of events right now. And I know what you're afraid of. And I have some directions for you. I have some help to give you. From this inner core, divine perspective and human perspective. And it lives inside of us. Like, there's a system inside of us that knows where we have to grow, what we need to do, what we need to look at, even when it doesn't make sense. How to navigate the process of what's going on around us anytime, not just at a time like this, but anytime. And the intuition that comes, that drops in, anchors into that guidance and becomes directional. So that's also why it's so important for people to stop listening to outside and listen to the inside and learn about how deeply embedded this inner guidance works. You know, in your teachings, and I've been to your classes, and, you know, for me, one of the coolest things ever is sometimes I just realize how our breath will open the mind and open the space to just hear the real directions. Yeah. And when we do that intentionally, the power of those directions, because for me, yoga and breath and the work you do, it's not just for that, it's for hearing yourself. And hearing the codes inside the system, which physiologically, we know what to do. Our instincts are too far away from us because of our civilization, but our instincts know what to do to survive. You know what I mean? Our inner guidance that can direct our emotions, our actions, our, you know, what's next? How do we have to, what perspective to take on what's going on based on our future, where we're going personally, and then we look at globally. That's what's critical now. That's like one of the most important things, you know?
It's when your body and mind stop shouting, you can hear the inner guidance a lot better. And yoga is just a way to stop your body and mind from shouting, shouting with an aching pain here or something, something hanging there, or the mind shouting at you. When you calm that stuff down, absolutely, there's this consistent knowing voice. I find it to be emotion free. It's not excited, it's not depressed. It just tells you as it is, as an inner guidance. And beautiful observation, that inside inspiration, intuition just comes like a spark, bang, which is, it has this sparky quality to it.
Yeah.
So yeah, this is really what yoga is about, and what stories have to do with it, which is why I love stories, and I wish for people to, a good story should offer a new perspective. That's what the function of a story is. And there are some really great stories out there. In the end, you end up going, oh yeah, I didn't see it that way, or oh yeah, I forgot about that, because that's what stories do, good stories do. So hanging out with good stories. And then what starts to happen, at least for me, is you start to see good stories everywhere. Like an incident with my daughter, that's a great story, or incident with the car, that's a great, so you just pick up stories. Some are ancient and some just happened 5 seconds ago, but it's the stories determine our perspective, and our perspective determines how we navigate through life. That's how powerful stories are. And to me, we seem to have 3 layers of stories. There are the cultural stories, societal stories, global stories, so I'm a Christian, I'm a Canadian, I'm a Buddhist, all that stuff, right? That's that. Then you have the interpersonal stories. Lisa's like this, Bhaskars like this, interpersonal, projecting stories on each other.
Yeah.
And then we have the most dangerous ones, the ones that we keep locked in, the intimate stories, the ones that are really operating how we see life, stories of unworthiness, stories of, or arrogance, whatever it might be. Yeah. So it's really important to, I find, reprogram those stories. And this goes back to healing, wounds, because we are born into life story free, because there's vocabulary free. We have personality traits, we have, unique, physical, mental, spiritual abilities and so on. But the stories come in, around between the age of, let's say, 3 to 12. That's like the most influential time, because that's when we're observing so much. We're like sponges, absorbing. So absorbing cultural stories, parental stories from our friends and school and so on. And a lot of those stories are just unhealed wounds and trauma that are just handed down and examined, and which is really what we carry around with us. Just no disrespect to my parents, they did the best they could do, but there were some unresolved stuff that I inherited, and then they inherited from their parents, this sort of a thing. So that's what's jamming up the signal, these really brilliant, intimate stories, opinions I have about myself, fears, which is why I put on a personality, Bhaskar yoga teacher, Bhaskar husband, Bhaskar, this, all that stuff. When that starts to become thin and dissolve, then there can be true presence. No performance, no persona, just presence. And then that inner guidance is in the driving seat.
Yes. Yeah. And what's interesting also to highlight in the conversation here is our inner guidance is fearless. It doesn't mind looking at difficult things. It doesn't mind looking at darkness. It doesn't mind looking at joy. It doesn't mind looking at anything. It's willing to address anything and direct anything, because there's no limits. It doesn't have a judgment. It doesn't care if it's good or bad or dark or light. It cares about the process of finding the new story, creating something new, moving through the process, and finding the way through. Often I find myself saying this to my clients, is things like, there's no way through but through, right? That. Yeah. It's like, well, that's profound. No, that's true. There's no way through but through. Like, there's not a bypass. No matter how quick you want to, have that snap, you're still having to go through that awareness or the change of that perception by seeing the truth, But I love the layers you're talking about, and it's very important, very, very important. And yoga too, like, this is what I find profound, is yoga, breath work, really meditation. is a fearless practice. Often people look at this practice as it's, you know, it embodies healing, it embodies positivity. And I often tell people, you know, when you sit with yourself in your quietest moment, that's when things really can come up. It's a fearless practice. You have to be fierce to sit with self.
It seems to be so, you know, but so gentle. It's like, yet inside there's this quality of fearlessness, and it cultivates fearlessness as well.
Yes.
And you're very right. This inner guidance voice, the way I've experienced it, and the way I express it is like it has no horse in the race. It's just saying this is how it is. That's all, you know.
It does. And you're like,
Doesn't
really?
care about, you know, grand or minuscule good. It's just this is how it is.
Yeah.
Yeah, yeah. For me, my experience has been the way I understand yoga. It's to cultivate that condition where you can hear that voice a little bit better, then a little bit better, and ultimately that it becomes a default setting.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, it's a very important time to just be self-aware, you know, take out all the ideas, concepts of even wanting to be peaceful, healthy, happy, all that stuff. Just, you know, it sounds so simple. You know, my morning practice is so simple. If anybody started like, this is it, it's a joke. It's so simple.
Master Bhaskar, what's going on here?
Nothing fancy, no legs over my head, nothing at all, you know. Super simple. Because I know where the tension manifests in my body. You know, I know what meditation practice really suits me well and what breath work really suits me well. So it's a very simple practice. So the challenge is not how complicated it is. It's very simple, yet it's complex. Because doing it is complex because we are complex. You know, we have difficulty with simplicity. We want some intellectual gymnastics. We want something complicated, some high philosophy. Yes. But when it's just like sit, observe breath, what? You know, I want something more. Give me something more. You know, I want a bone to chew on. And, you know, at its purest, yoga is really very simple. The way I understand it is you move so your body is pain-free, injury-free, internal organs are functioning well, so you can sit without being disturbed. The way I understand optimum health is to be able to sit still for a meaningful duration without being distracted by aches and pains. And that's the function of the asana practice. And if you can do that, that means you're in good health, you know? Mm-hmm. And then you do the breath practice just to regulate the mind. The ancient yogis understood something very obvious, that the breath is very much related to the mind. So if I'm going through anxiety, stress, anger, frustration, my breath pattern will be shaky and erratic and unsteady. If I'm in a pleasant environment and having a great conversation, my breath will be nice and smooth because my mind is comfortable. And when I go into deep states of meditation, the breath almost disappears, becomes very, very thin because my mind is very, very calm. So there's a mirroring effect here. So as I regulate my breath, I regulate my mind at one level. Another level, there's energy as well. The energy that's flowing in my body. This is not just inert matter. There's energy in here. And there's science behind how the breath allows us to regulate and extend our vitality. And so much of us feel overwhelmed or depressed because we have very low energy in our body. So the pranayama really helps to supercharge the battery of your body. It's very much like a cell phone. You want to be able to charge it as much as possible and not waste energy on apps that are working in the background that are completely useless, you know? So, and that's meditation, to just shut down all that noise that's really not serving any meaningful purpose.
Yeah, it's powerful. Really, really powerful. I want to ask you a question about what you think, you know, what you think the collective needs. I mean, I know you enough to know, like, you know, we're talking about things, but I know you're as a very, very deep and profound human being. And I know you take time to think deeply about what's going on. So I want to know your perspective about what the collective is going through, you know, and what you think might really bring service to people to think differently about it, to help themselves, you know? Is there anything that you really have understood from your own deep dive into what's going on that you want to share?
As you speak, what's coming up for me is the power of simplicity.
Yeah.
You know, it's really in the simple. And if it's complicated, sit with it longer until it becomes simple. Yeah, I have, like many people have, when this whole thing started, try to get information, just get an understanding of what's going on. And once I understood it, like you just did, simple. There's a story around greed that we've created a society around. You can go into details, but you understand that, and then you focus on simple. How can I contribute to a magnificent story?
Yes.
And just go into that, simple. And what kind of a body and mind do I need to navigate through that meaningfully? Simple, If your calling is to be a bodybuilder, then go ahead, get to the gym and do what you got to do. If if you're a runner, then, so understand what you're about. I use the metaphor of what I call an orange tulip, so if you have a seed, someone gifted you a seed of an orange tulip and you put it in the ground, you gave it the right environment for it to grow. And then is it ever going to be a mango tree? Impossible. Or a sunflower, or even a red tulip. It's not going to happen.
Yeah.
You can be an orange tulip. You can cry and pray and beg and scream. You can do whatever you want to, but it can only be an orange tulip. You can be violent. It's going to be a battered orange tulip, but still orange tulip. So it's really about understanding what's your orange tulip. What are you about? And then become the best version of that. So it's really that simple. Know what you're about and double down on your gifts and offer them to the world in a way that's meaningful. And the rest will come from wherever it is. That's my best understanding. So it was a shift. I think Dr. Wayne Dyer calls it the shift from ambition to meaning. So I've been programmed in the world of ambition. When that shift took place of meaning, then suddenly there was a deepening of appreciation. And all the stuff that I was seeking, strangely enough, just came from wherever it was, or different tangential things happened I wasn't even prepared for. Yeah. So that was a huge eye-opener for me, that shift from seeking to appreciating, from ambition to meaning, from complexity to simplicity. This would be the big life lesson.
That's amazing. And how did you make space for that? Was it from the simplicity of practice of just everything you just described? Like, I went into this place inside and that allowed for these experiences to happen?
I wish I could say I sat in meditation and I had this aha moment. No, it was from the first burning of life. I had to almost die. It was brutal. You know the story. It was not pleasant.
Yes. Yes.
Yeah. It was the life, because the compassionate way of whispering, I wasn't hearing it. So life had to shout at me. So yeah, I wish to save people that harsh way of understanding, because it's maybe it's necessary. I don't know. But for me, it was, going through one very intense near-death experience. It just added another layer of understanding. There's something about crisis, which is very beautiful. It's the strangest thing, I think Bob Dylan said it best. There is no success like failure, and failure is no success at all. So although externally it looks like a big failure, but internally it's a huge success, because that, combined with the regular practice allows for better seeing. That's what it was for me. For sure, the practice helped me navigate through that intensity. It like gave me a seatbelt, so I didn't have to, bash my head too hard against the, the carriage. But so it was a combination of having a practice and going through the full catastrophe of life that allowed me this very helpful perspective.
And so going through a near-death experience, obviously there's tremendous takeaways from that, because I'm hearing you, and I know we've shared a lot of these stories and experiences, right? But I think the takeaway is enormous for people, because often people are running away from their near-death experiences, which are occurring all the time. Like, humanity is in one now. We're in a near-death experience. We're trying to be shown what we need to understand, that is killing us from the inside, or that can be doing this. And I want to know how, if you don't mind talking about that more deeply, how did it change you? Like, what were the lessons that brought you there? What did you learn that became very significant for what you understand today?
Yeah. Up to that point, what I'm bending back, what I realized is I was using yoga as a tool, as a technique. you know? So
Yes.
when life jams up, I'll use this technique, this breathing technique, this mantra, this exercise, whatever, you know, it was a tool. So I was in a condition where none of my tools were working.
Mm-hmm.
I was absolutely helpless. The life was so intense. I was in helpless pain. And what created in me was a genuine state of surrender.
Mm-hmm.
You control nothing, you know, let go of your techniques, your strategies, your cleverness.
Mm.
And that surrender allowed for the isness of life to speak, is the best way I can describe it, because it's really beyond words. Um, and and so what happened, I'll just break down the experience, was I'm in intense helpless pain. And you know, when I got to the place of complete surrender, this is how it is, this is the reality of this moment. The very next thing was, okay, let's dance with this.
Yes.
Let's dance with this, you know? What
Yes.
is working? Hey, I'm still breathing. Cool. That's working, you know? Pretty much that was the only thing that was working at the time, you know? Okay, cool. All right, I'm still breathing. That's cool, you know? And then where attention goes, energy flows. You focus on what is working, you know, what was, you know, even if it's like down to 1%, it becomes 2%, 20%, 50%. And that's kind of how it is. So you focus on what is working and you empower that with your attention and your intention. Okay, that's working. And now that's working. And what's working becomes more and more and more and more. So that's how it played out for me. Helplessness, surrender, dance.
Mm-hmm. I love it.
Appreciation was big, you know?
Yeah.
And really I was in a condition where nothing was working besides my breath. So that was life telling me there's always something to appreciate.
Yeah. And that is so powerful. I just want everyone to just think about that for a minute. How important that is. It is so important. Like, what can you, and not be grateful for? You're not saying that. You're saying, what can you appreciate? Really appreciate. And I like the conversation of the difference between appreciation and gratitude. Even though they're close cousins, there's a difference when you sit and you really appreciate a moment, appreciate something. For me, a sense of gratitude can come from that. But when you
Yeah.
really understand what's happening to you, I think that's what appreciation is. You're understanding the details of your suffering. You're understanding the details of someone's generosity, of the details of a beautiful conversation like this, of who you are. Like, you know, I see who you are. I can feel who you are. I'm letting it into who I am. I'm not just grateful for what you're doing for me. I'm feeling you. I'm embracing this moment. I'm so deeply appreciative of what I'm experiencing from. You're so in the presence of what's going on that it liberates your heart and your mind. It opens the portal for this state of grace and humility. You know, for me, that's what it brings. That's what it brings. The ego completely in submission, because it has no place to live in appreciation, because it doesn't understand that. So it's like this natural environment for beauty and grace in any situation, you know, like in any adversity, in any challenge, you know. Oh, for me, that's so beautiful and powerful and important. You know, I wanted to share this with you. A few years ago, I said my new value, one of the standards that I wanted to create in my life, because I wasn't living it. You know, I'm like an overgiver. It's crazy. And I'm like, stop doing that, you know? Yeah, I'm like, stop it. And a few years ago, I said, okay, so what is the goal? You know, inner guidance. What is the goal for this year? What shall I focus on as really important? And one year, I realized appreciation was really important for me, and that I wasn't even focusing on that as something that's a value and a way of living and being. And inside out, outside in, like, are people that are they with me? Are they appreciating me? Do they see me? Or are they like just looking past me? You know, am I really in the moment with people that I'm working with? Do I really appreciate the people in my life? Do I really appreciate everything that's around me? Do I appreciate my car when I get in? Do I give it that thank you for being here with me, driving me from this place to this place? Because it's different than I'm grateful for this car.
Yeah.
And I practiced this for a year. Every single thing I did, I'm practicing the appreciation for this water and what it's going to do in my body, and sitting and breathing with that and letting that run through me. Because when I take this glass of water and I look at it and I find appreciation, I appreciate where it came from, because I could see that. And then I think about, where did you come from? And there's a trail of moments of seeing how much went into this water and what it's doing in my body. And then I move into appreciating my body, because this water is feeding the cells, which are making, and it's become for me this endless experience of just great joy, in good or bad, in dark or light. So you know what I mean? Such a teacher appreciation.
You know, as you said so beautifully, it's a quality of noticing.
Yes.
It's a quality of noticing, and the effect is gratefulness.
Yes.
And when you really stop to notice, it's overwhelming how much there is to appreciate. It is really overwhelming.
So gorgeous and wonderful and important. You know, it really is.
Even the stuff that's jamming up, if you really stop to notice, you will see the lesson in it, and you'll go, my goodness, that's brilliant. You know, you start to appreciate the crap as well, going, wow, brilliant lesson. You know?
That's true. And even adversity and challenges, and even what's going on in the world now, we can get into that place of appreciating the moments we do have, what the lessons we're learning, you know, singularly and globally, you know, for the reflections of who we are and how we're showing up to the people around us, or, you know, whatever comes through, just being in that state of mind. And I know for me, I made it this goal that everything that I would do, I would stop and ask what I could appreciate. I mean, every day, like, what could I appreciate in this conversation? What could I appreciate out taking these steps, in this pain, in what I'm not doing, in my stress, in my strain, in my frustration, in the lessons, in letting go, in every single thing that came to me. And it's easier for me to practice because I made that an important priority in my intentions. And I think if we do that, we live that, we become the living of that, then it becomes a natural disposition, which heals those stories, doesn't it?
If nothing else comes out from our conversation, I hope the viewer, listener comes out with that understanding. Appreciation is not morality. It's a life skill. You know, it's a very practical life skill. If you're going through anxiety, stress, anger, fear, phobia, neurosis, depression, all that kind of stuff, try appreciation. And you make this simple, very simple realization: the two can't coexist. It's impossible to appreciate and be stressed. It's as simple as that, you know? Yeah.
What do you tell your children about what's going on?
This is a very good question, because I have a 14-year-old, 11-year-old, and 3-year-old.
I know, that's what I'm asking. Like, you know, the viewers are going to love this.
You see, the 14-year-old is tuned in. He is slick, he's savvy, you know, he's got his own thing going on. So he's mature enough to understand life in his own way. We have some great conversations around things that he's interested in. Really, I do my best to not tell them anything. This is a conscious effort, and it's been something that's been hard earned. You know, I've been a parent now for 14 years. So it's a lesson I'm learning the slow and hard way, that children just don't learn from what I say. You know, if anything, they learn from who I am. And my role primarily is not to teach them or fix them or anything like that. It's just to create a loving environment where they feel safe and they feel heard. So this is my intention. I've failed many times, you know, and you just pick yourself up, dust yourself off, and try it again, because all the old programming that I have to undo. It is my sincere intention just to create an environment where they feel safe and loved and comfortable. So when life does, you know, hit him on the blind side, they have a safe place to come to, and they recognize what love and safety looks like, so they can feel the difference. So that's really my sole focus on as a parent. I don't really go into explaining life in philosophies and what I think is going on. They can figure this out for themselves. If they have a question, of course, I'll look to answer it in a way that is meaningful and uplifting. You know, but generally, you know, Google's got that covered.
Oh, yeah, they have access. They have Google access.
What's going on? Ask Google. No, I'm kidding. it's great to pick on something that's interesting for both of us and just have a great conversation. It's rarely about pandemic. It's more about soccer and, you know, tennis and stuff like that. For my son, for my daughter, it's just playing games and being creative. And for the youngest one, it's just goofing around. So yeah.
I love it. I love it. I love that you're focused on them where they are. That's so important.
Yeah,
So important.
Very beautiful and humbling process to be a parent. I tell you, it's you know, for me, I often joke and sincerely joke that the best I can hope for is to ruin them just a little bit. That's the best case scenario, you know. So knowing that, but they're also amazing, genuinely unbelievable. I find so much inspiration from them. It's a weird thing to be so much bigger and to be in a position of authority when they are really the ones who have a lot more to offer to me.
My greatest experience of you is how cool you are as a dad. You're just cool. You're just so cool. You really are.
Shout out to my son. After a certain age, they stop seeing you as cool.
Yeah, right. Yep. I understand. That would make sense. You know, they have to go through that phase for sure. For sure.
I love them. They're awesome.
Yeah. I have a couple more things I want to ask you about because I mean, people who don't know you, you really need to, they don't, you know, they're not going to see what I know about you. So I want to expose that because for me, it's so important. Like you're an important part of the world. And what you teach and what you share and stuff you're talking about, and especially the storylines of possibility and change are really important, you know? So I want to ask you this big question about what do you think the world needs to do? What do you think we need to embrace? What do you think, if we're all united, what do you think it is that we really need to understand? Whatever it is that comes to you that is important for the world, not just for the individual.
You know, as you speak, what I'm reminded of is that if we all stop doing stuff, in 25 years, the world will be back to normal and ecosystem resolved.
Right?
Clean, the sky is clean. So our challenge is not in doing stuff. We've done enough. You know, so,
I love it.
So let's slow down the doing and focus on meaningful action. So far, it's just been random reactive action. So let's just slow it down, you know, slow down the need to do stuff and really reflect on what is the deeper impact of this action. Is it really meaningful? Is it really adding value, health, happiness, strength, joy, peacefulness to me and those around me? So it's more like a filtering process of our action. You know, I'd invite people to not do you know, so do things that are more meaningful and impactful and not just add to the noise and
I love it.
Of ideas out there. So yeah, it's the focus is much more on meaningful action, and it's not for me to prescribe what that means. It's for one to really dive deep and understand what that means for them. Yeah, so meaningful action is more important than just me saying, hey, you know, do yoga, you know, maybe that's not for you. Cool. You know, maybe it's going for a run, maybe it's dancing. Absolutely. Just go for it. No?
Yeah. And let me ask you another question that's important for me to hear what you have to say about. I want to know what happened to generosity and what we need to do to open the door to that again.
So this is it. So we started the conversation with there's a story around greed, right?
Yeah.
So we developed systems and systems around greed. And what's the antidote to that? Well, we create a story around generosity. It's that simple. It really is that simple. And as we perceive, so it is. So when we start to create more stories around generosity, celebrate stories of generosity, you know, and embody stories of generosity, suddenly the individual story changes, the local story changes, the national story changes, and the collective global story changes for generations. That's how powerful it is. So it is my sincere intention to serve the story of generosity intimately, interpersonally, and collectively. That's what I really care deeply about. You know, that's what I wish to be a part of, because I sincerely feel that's the antidote, very logically speaking, to the story around greed.
Yeah. And tell people, let's talk about a little bit what people can do on their own. How can they perceive and start to take actions around the thoughts of generosity and what that means? Is there any suggestions? Because we're far, you know, when we talk about generosity, well, yeah, but this is what I hear. Yeah, but Yeah, but no, the yeah, but is the greed pulling you in, making you worry about what you might lose by your action of generosity.
Mm.
So, what can we help people understand so they can just start that journey?
To understand that generosity is an intention, see it as an intention first. The intention empowers and informs the verbal action,
Yes.
and that informs the physical action. It's
Yeah.
the intention of generosity. Am I coming from a place of generosity?
Hmm.
As a father, am I coming from a place of generosity to my children? As a husband, as a yoga teacher, as a speaker, whatever role I'm playing,
Hmm.
is my inner climate one of generosity, which
Yeah.
means, am I here to serve and appreciate those around me? This is something I have some say over. How people receive me and react, this is random. I don't have any say over that, but I should have some say over my intention, you know? And what jams it up, really, I find, is our need to prove, is our need to defend, is our need to promote, you know? So I have this mantra I carry in my back pocket and I use it all the time. I used it just now before speaking with you,
Get your pen and paper. Here we go.
which is really feeling it. It's not just intellectual. I really feel the intention, you know? I have nothing to prove. I have nothing to promote. I have nothing to defend. I'm here to serve and appreciate.
Mm, I
That
love,
creates an inner climate of generosity in me. And
I,
the rest is what it is.
yeah, I
That
love,
to me is generosity. It's your
yeah,
inner climate.
I love it. What's your description of generosity?
It's exactly this, to serve and appreciate. And what that means is
Mm,
serve. What are my unique gifts, talents, knacks, attributes? For me to serve properly, I need to have some mastery over this. I need to be beyond competent. So
yeah.
it has maximum impact.
Mm,
That's one thing. And when I'm in a state of appreciating this moment with you, right away my inner guidance is speaking, because I have no horse in the race. You know, I'm not trying to prove anything to you. I'm not trying to promote anything. I'm trying to defend any point of view. I'm here to appreciate you.
yeah.
So I'm not even here. It's that inner voice, the guidance that's speaking. And it feels deeply uplifting. And I
So,
know you know this as well. So you find yourself saying stuff, you go, oh, where'd that come from? You know?
that was pretty good.
You know, this sort of a thing starts to happen more and more. You start to recognize and notice coincidences, serendipities, and the empathic side of you gets heightened
Yes.
because you have no horse in the race. And this is generosity. We
Mm,
are, once we start being tight, the hue of that is generosity.
I love it. You know, I just adore you. I'm just tingling and my heart's very full. Like, I'm like, I'm good. You guys, how are you all doing? Because I'm good right now. I really am. It's so evolutionary, you know, to have this kind of conversation and to just bring it back to that simplicity of actions and intention. And, you know, appreciation is huge, 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 huge for me. You know what I mean? Really, really big.
It literally saved my life.
Yes. Yes. And what's like, I want to know, because you know how I am about you. I want to know the story that would represent 3 months ago.
Okay. It's amazing you say that. So, about 3 months ago, 3.5 months ago, Caroline, my wife, she left her job. You know, she went on temporary EI, shut down, and so on. And right away, she got obsessed with cleaning out all the books in our house. We have a whole bunch of books lying around. It was like just so we started to categorize them in books. We Marie Kondoed it. You know, Marie Kondo, where you have to really connect with it and see if it gives you joy and if you connect with it. So she
Yeah.
gave me a bunch of books to connect with, and I was going through that process. Yes, no, yes, no. And this book came to me, and I'd never seen the book before. So I tried to connect with it. I was feeling nothing. I'm like, I don't know about this book. So I just opened the book at a random page, and it fell upon this story. And the story goes like this. It was a Sufi story of a character called Nasruddin. In the story, Nasruddin was just wandering outside his town, and the plague came by. Nasruddin asked the plague, hey, what are you doing? The plague said, I'll be honest with you. I'm here to take 10,000 lives. Nasruddin was shocked. Plague goes into town. 100,000 people died.
Whoa.
As the plague is leaving the town, Nasruddin was so shocked, so furious with the plague. What did you do? You promised me you'd take 10,000 lives. Now 100,000 people have died. And the plague responded, well, I was true to my word. I only took 10,000 lives. The rest died from fear.
Mm.
Fear, 10 times more dangerous than the plague.
Yes.
That's the story of our times, you know? Don't let fear jam up your playful heart.
Yes. Oh my goodness.
Yeah.
And a story about now.
This is it, my dear. This is the story for now. This is it. What we are living, breathing, experiencing, right down to 50 trillion cells in the body or so dancing around. That's the story of now.
Yeah.
How beautiful is that story?
Yeah.
You know, there's no story that can match the story of now. It's an amazing story. I can't, every time I tune in, I can't handle it. You know, the story of now is so beautiful.
Yeah. No, it really is. It really, really is. And again, with the texture of appreciation and just sitting in the moment and looking from that place. It's so good. What about a story about 4 months from now?
4 months from now. This is a longer story, but you have, okay, all right, then I'll go for it. What's coming up for me for 4 months from now is the Golden Buddha story. So it so happens, you know, a while back there was a little town in Vietnam, and the prized possession of this town is this massive, magnificent golden Buddha statue. It was spectacular, just amazing. And word soon came to this village that there was a foreign army attacking the land, and they were getting closer and closer to this village. And the villagers right away got very, you know, concerned about the statue. Of course, they will pillage the statue. What to do? We can't carry it with us, it's too big. So one villager had a brilliant idea of covering the statue with mud. So they all got together, patched it with mud and carved it perfectly and left the village. Sure enough, the army came to town. They disregarded the mud statue. They took what they could for a few days, and the army also left. And the village laid bare for decades. And a whole new settlement came to the village. Nobody knew about the statue. And they lived like this for decades and decades. And finally, one hot afternoon, a young monk was sitting, meditating in front of the mud statue. And as he opened his eyes, he saw something glistening in the corner of the statue. He became very curious. He went up and scratched at it, and the dust fell off, and it revealed gold. Immediately, he ran to the monastery and said, "Gold! The statue is made of gold." And all the senior monks came from the monastery, etched away all the mud, and returned the statue to its original golden nature. So this is my best hope for 4 months from now, you know, is to realize that we have this beautiful golden Buddha nature in us. It's just waiting to shine, and to take this chance to just remove all this mud, you know, of fear and diffidency and all that kind of stuff. So in 4 months from now, we can really shine, you know, in our natural golden state. So this is my best wish for me, for you, for humanity.
I love it. That's beautiful. So beautiful. And I want to just ask you, what are you up to? Talk to me about how, first of all, because I want people who are listening who don't know you, because I absolutely adore you and just think you're magnificent. And I can't wait to see what's going on with you in 20 years from now. It's just been so, you know, for me, of the evolution of our connection and how we do this. And, you know, just where, oh, look where you are now. Oh, how beautiful, how wonderful. And, you know, the evolutionary journey of your life and, you know, your soul's experience and all that. And in the present moment, you know, I know you're helping people, you're serving and you're doing what you do. And what are you doing now to serve people? Like, are you still working? Can people connect with you? Can they take your class? Like, talk to me about that.
So, you know, right now, obviously, I did a lot of things in group settings, retreats, conferences, workshops, and so on. So that obviously has diminished. Yeah. I do offer several private classes through Zoom. So that's still going on. It's more my corporate clients. Okay. Every now and again, there are, webinars and conversations like this I'd love to share with people. I release videos now and again of practices and insights and so on. So the last time I checked, I was the only Bhaskar Goswami in Montreal. So you can just Google me or Facebook me, and you should be able to find that. And also my website, which is bhaskargoswami.com. That has what's going on.
Yeah.
We did a pilot project retreat a couple of weeks ago, an open air retreat in Point Claire. It was absolutely beautiful. So there's an intention to do more outdoors kind of retreats. So I'm working on one right now. Hasn't been fully detailed yet. So that's kind of what it is. A lot of web-based group activities. I'm also doing a lot of privates now. So that's really growing a lot. So there's two flavors. I call it catch a fish or teach how to fish. So catch a fish is when I, through the web or face-to-face, social distancing respected, I meet with people and offer, practices as a yoga consultant. Teaching how to fish is more mentoring. So really going into how to teach, how to be a yoga teacher, mindfulness teacher, the philosophy and also practical stuff like branding and marketing stuff. So I basically allow people to just have access to me, open source, not to create other versions of me, but to create a highest version of themselves, just giving the tools that might benefit them. So I'm doing a lot of private one-on-one stuff now, which I'm really appreciating because there's an opportunity to really dive down deep when it's one-on-one.
So for those of you who are looking for that, remember your business might need it, your employees might need Bhaskar. You may want to, just get connected with him to, get some wisdom and just work through whatever you're going through in your own personal life as well. Like it's so important because people don't, a conversation like this leads to an opening, but they don't understand the impact you can make from being a mentor, from all your experience. You're also a yogapreneur. You're an entrepreneur. You're a person who has put yourself out there, who has gone through challenges, who does understand what it's like to, teach spirit, teach practice and teach way of living and way of being. So, it's wonderful. So that's important. If you guys, I'll make sure all the links are there for anybody who's interested in connecting with you. And you can work with anybody anywhere in the world. Just to tell you, my beautiful audience, he's limitless. So please take advantage of that opportunity if you feel connected to this conversation. I just love you and adore you so much.
Me too.
We should have many more of these conversations because they're very important. And for my podcast friends who listen to this, make sure that you call them up and get them on yours because that's really important as well. You're willing so generously to share your wisdom. You know what I mean? You're my favorite storyteller in the world. So that's hashtag my favorite storyteller. Yeah. Is there any other final words of wisdom you really want people to just walk or keep with them as we close up?
Let's close out with this understanding of Dharma. It's so clear to me. There's such a profound gift in you, Lisa. And that it's deeply nourishing to offer that gift. It's just how we're built as human beings. It's the laws of nature. It rewards us when we give our gift. That's also why I wish to serve. It's so beautiful. Objectively speaking, I've received some insights and gifts, just like the color of my eyes. I can't take credit for it. It's just there. And it's beautiful to help and serve through that. And it's true for every single person. We all have unique gifts and attributes. And it's just deeply rewarding as a human condition to serve with that. So let's land on that. Let's land on this idea of Dharma, that we have a unique DNA fingerprint sort of purpose in this life that we're born with. Our gifts point to that. And let's master these gifts and offer them to the world and create a mighty story together. Good for ourselves, good for everybody around us.
My hair is standing on end now, which is always good. That's always a good sign, always. And it's important, it's really important, all of you, to remember that. You have to go find your fingerprint. Remember, that's critical at this point. So thank you so much for today. What an amazing conversation. I adore you.
Adore you too.
Until our next time. Thanks everybody for listening.
That's